So about us, we are the hosts of this Women's March, which is also co-hosted by Planned Parenthood and our local co-host, National Organization for Women. Who are we? Who are the Will County Progressives? We are a civil organization, but we fight for the people. We fight for all people. We fight for women's rights, disability rights, LGBTQ plus and others' rights, BIPOC rights, equity and equality for all. We fight for the poor, the working poor, and the middle class. We know that nothing is done free. We are volunteers, so we rely on funds. Please consider becoming a Will County Progressives monthly member, $5 monthly donation. It would be greatly appreciated so we can keep having events like this and actions like this going forward. Again, I want to remind everyone we are having a sign contest. 3 best signs win. Top prize is $100 to a wonderful Plainfield downtown small business. Follow our page, join the group, upload your picture, and may the best sign win. We would also like to point out, as I just mentioned, the Plainfield downtown small businesses are amazing. We suggest and hope that after this rally, you will walk over, patronize those businesses, and help them out. Small businesses are important, and we support small business. So who sent us? Ruth sent us. 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 Thank you. And now I will introduce the chair of the Will County Progressives and Joliet Township trustee, Susanna Ibarra.
Thank you, Christine. She has done a wonderful job. While I was on vacation in Starved Rock, she has held it down like a beast. So why are we here? Justice Alito. With admiration, Justice Alito cites Matthew Hale. Matthew Hale was a 17th century English lawyer, then judge. This is a justice who Alito cited in the leaked brief opinion Roe v. Wade. Hale was particularly misogynist, even for his time, and had disconnected ideas and discredited ideas have been used for centuries to subjugate women. Justice Alito cites Hale more than a dozen times in his argument, challenging the historical narrative of abortion laws in the United States. 21st, one thing that Hale has helped embed in the law is the premise that women who claim rape are liars, and the idea that proving rape should be extraordinary and difficult. Hale presided over one of England's most notorious witchcraft trials, which resulted in the hanging of 2 elder widow women who were accused of bewitching their neighbors. Hale, in a letter left to his descendants about life, laments that young English women learn to be bold and talk loud. These young women know the ready way to ruin a family quickly. They are a sort of changeable, unprofitable people. So what I am saying here is that opinion is telling all of us what's about to come. That at that point in time in history, women were seen as nothing more than property. Property of their fathers first, and property secondly, eventually, of their husbands, that had no recourse against any kind of treatment. And we are not going back to that age. We are not going back to that age where we are viewed as property. We are human beings. We are smart. We are beautiful, and we are strong, and we are taking over the the world. I'll have more later, but we have a very special guest.
Hello, I'm Trinity Allen. I am a Illinois State University student and student athlete, and I have been doing stuff like this since I was 16. But I'm just up here to introduce our wonderful Congresswoman Lauren Underwood. I personally look up to her. As a Black woman in politics, and she inspires me to continue my studies in political science and legal studies every day. So here she is.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Christine and Susanna from the Will County Progressives and the Will County National Organization for Women for hosting this event. And thank you for showing up to protect our fundamental right to make decisions about our own bodies. Now, I wish that we didn't have to be here today for this purpose, but I am so glad that we're here together, because it's going to take every single one of us to win the fight that we are facing. Last week's draft Supreme Court opinion overturning Roe v. Wade laid bare what is at stake this year for American families. Even though we knew it was coming, ever since Mitch McConnell stole a Supreme Court seat from President Obama in 2015, I think that we are all feeling the same stunned disbelief right now, the same rage, and the same fear. In the history of our country, Americans have never, ever lost a constitutional right. And that may be about to change. Proud pro-science states like Illinois are going to fight back every step of the way. But ultimately, horrifyingly, that may not matter, because American women are facing an unprecedented loss of our fundamental legal rights, because the radical far-right majority on the Supreme Court is expected to finalize this draft or a version of it in July, which means the first opportunity the American public has to respond is the election in November. Because this is not the end. This is just the beginning. Republicans have laid bare their plans for their extreme anti-science agenda. And if they are successful, our lives will be unrecognizable. The state-level assault on reproductive freedom has already begun. Next, Republicans want to criminalize abortion federally. Now, I'm a nurse, and so I want to make sure we are very clear on the medical consequences of these laws, written by people who don't know how women's bodies work, or they just don't care. Under some of the state laws Republicans are considering, abortion won't be available even to save a mother's physical or mental health. We can't even count on exceptions for rape or incest, or if the mother herself is a child. Those experiencing miscarriage, like those in Texas today, will be denied care for fear of criminal charges at one of the most medically vulnerable times of their lives. If you need fertility treatment, it's going to be more expensive and even harder to get. Some of the best treatments may not even be available at all. Some of the most effective forms of birth control, like Plan B and IUDs, are going to be harder or maybe even impossible to get. The same goes for life-saving drugs used to treat miscarriage and ectopic pregnancies. Now, 1 in 50 pregnancies is ectopic, and those pregnancies are never viable. meaning there's zero chance of a fetus developing. If you need treatment for this very common condition and you don't get it, you die. The only treatment is abortion. And pharmacists in Texas are already refusing to fill those prescriptions. I know that these things may be hard to hear, and I'm speaking so plainly because these threats are so real and urgent, as difficult as they are. I don't have to tell you that the government forcing people to give birth in this country, in our country, a country without comprehensive health care, sex education, or access to birth control, in a country where pregnancy is deadlier than any other high-income country in the world, in a country without affordable childcare or enough mental health care or even equal pay, in a country where 1 in 6 children go to bed hungry, and in a country where we are now running low on infant formula, the government forcing people to give birth is outrageous, it's immoral, and it's just plain wrong. And here's the thing. The thing is, the legal consequences of this Supreme Court decision go far beyond abortion access. I have to tell you, honestly, I've been shocked and disgusted by the plans that Republican lawmakers have laid out in response to this draft opinion and the legal precedent it affects. It's clear that the wave of state laws attacking LGBTQ kids and families will get so much worse. And not just that, some Republicans are now working to overturn marriage equality. The draft opinion even suggested that consensual sex between LGBTQ+ adults could be criminalized again. Values that we take for granted in our modern world. Everyone's right to use birth control. Even integrated public schools are now at risk. This is real. In the year 2022, in the United States of America, a Republican senator is saying that the legal right to marry someone of a different race is up for debate. If this extreme agenda moves forward, all of our lives will change radically, even those of us in blue states like Illinois. We will all know someone who's had the police knock on their door after a miscarriage, or who was denied birth control as a single adult, or who died from a treatable pregnancy-related condition. Many of us may even experience these things ourselves. And these stories won't be rare. They will be common. They will be normal. If you're feeling scared, I'm here to tell you, I'm scared too. If you're feeling betrayed, me too. That's why I am channeling my energy into action. If you want to fight back, here's how. Only 2 things can stop this: the Women's Health Protection Act and a U.S. Senate majority willing to defend our rights. The Women's Health Protection Act enshrines Roe into law, protecting the right to abortion care. I helped introduce it last year, and we passed it in the House of Representatives in September. But the Senate voted this week, and 51 senators, including every single Republican, voted no. We need a clear pro-choice Senate majority, and our next opportunity to make that a reality is coming this November. Now, second, we can push for bold action to expand abortion access as we face the threat of losing it. We need to ensure that all Americans have access to telemedicine and medication abortions. We need to counter bad actors spreading conspiracy theories about abortion just like they do about life-saving vaccines. And We need to support the U.S. Attorney General to fight more of these restrictive state laws in federal court. Now, third, tell everyone you know, raise the alarm, light a fire under them, and I mean everyone. Explain the consequences, because I don't think that everyone knows right now what this will mean for them personally, especially men. Educate your community and advocate for change, and make sure they and all of you vote. The American public is with us, and that's how we are going to win this. Reproductive health care, including abortion, is supported by a strong majority, and together we will protect those rights for ourselves and our families, because ultimately that is what this is about. The family with 3 kids and an unexpected pregnancy who cannot afford to have another baby. The single woman in her 30s who needs access to birth control because the time isn't right yet. And simply, all patients should make decisions about their own bodies. This has been a fundamental right for nearly 50 years, and we cannot afford to turn back the clock. We cannot stand silently as the Supreme Court overturns our rights and hands our kids in America with fewer freedoms than they were born with. We must raise our voices together, as we are today, to tell our leaders, if the Supreme Court strikes down our constitutional right to bodily autonomy, we must pass laws at all levels to protect our right to make our own decisions. We cannot stand by silently as they criminalize health care. We will keep moving forward, not backwards. We will not stop fighting. This is going to be the fight of our lives, but it is one that we can win. And I am honored to be in this fight with all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're so honored to have you here and protecting a woman's right to choose. Thank you so much. Let's hear it for Lauren Underwood. Such an honor to have her here. Thank you so much. Okay, so our next speaker, I'm very excited about this. Trinity Allen, Will County Progressives member and an Illinois State University student athlete. Trinity, let's go!
Hello, everybody. How are we doing? We doing good? We're supporting women's rights? Yeah? I need you to scream one more time, like a little louder, because you need to be serious about this. I'm here to talk to you today about how abortion rights will affect women of color, trans lives, everybody. It has a lasting impact on everybody. Let's get one thing straight. Abortion restrictions are racist and classist. Abortion restrictions directly affect women and persons of color who are already marginalized. What these pro-lifers fail to consider, or rather do not care to consider, is that about 66% of women in the US who get abortions are non-white. This is due to already inadequate access to health care and livable wages. In turn, lack of options for forms of birth control. It's a result of inadequate education in schools, for underfunded schools. Another thing they fail to consider is that 1.08 of black babies die at birth compared to 0.46% of white babies. Not to mention how many black women die while giving birth. Now, many minorities in these states are not at a livable wage to have the means to care for a child without a traumatizing struggle. Not to mention, these lawmakers don't even want to help these communities to begin with, hindering welfare programs. Pregnancy and birth is extremely dangerous, regardless of known complications. Not all women want to take the chance. Not all women want to endure the physical toll it takes on their body. Not all women want to take the chance of the stability of their mental health or feel that they are even stable to care for a child. These are things that these lawmakers don't want to think about. They want to be pro-lifers, but they don't care what happens to these kids when they are come to term, when they are born. They don't consider where these kids go. And the 430,000 children in the foster care system currently. Is the government ready to put more funds towards the foster care system? With all of the children that will be put into there with making abortions illegal. No, they're not prepared and they don't care to be prepared. Now, we talk about, rape and rape culture. A majority of rape victims are under the age of 30. 15% of total rape victims being ages 12 to 17. The likelihood that a person suffers suicidal or depressive thoughts increases after sexual violence. How would a 12-year-old girl who was raped by her uncle feel if she had to carry a baby to term? They're not considering the mental toll, the physical toll that it takes on that young girl's life. They don't care. They don't care. But even with these statistics, it is important to remember, and I want this to stick in your guys' brains. Listen to what I say here. If you only support the right to abortion in instances of rape or incest, then you are supporting the idea that women only have bodily autonomy after her body has been violated. This isn't about whether a woman is raped or anything. It doesn't matter how it happens, although it takes two to tango. It takes two to tango. Let's remember that too. And a lot of men are irresponsible with that. And then don't want to care for the child afterwards, but that's a whole nother conversation. But it is about simply our right to choose. Men don't have to worry about possibly getting pregnant, the complications, or literally carrying a fetus for 9+ months. It's dangerous, it's painful. Although it can have joys to it, it is dangerous and it is hard. Is the government going to subsidize and give money at conception? No, they're not. But they want you to deal with that and carry the baby to term. Getting rid of abortion is just another tool for control of the low-income and middle-class communities to maintain the wealth gap. This is another way for them to kill off black and brown communities. This is a way for them to put more black and brown people in prison to keep private prisons full. GOP lawmakers argue that many people will adopt these children. A large percentage of Americans adopt internationally. Is the government ready to provide that adequate funding? No. Is the government going to provide care for low-income women who do not have health care for them to carry a fetus to term? No. Should child support begin at conception? Yes. It should be a woman's right to choose, because it takes two to create a life, because men don't always want to take care of their child that the woman they impregnated had to carry for 9 or more months, because pregnancy can bring many physical and mental health dangers that may lead to death. This is about our right to choose, and that's what we're going to do, and we're not stopping for nothing. My biggest idol, I plan on running for office one day. I'm currently 19 years old, but ever since I was 15, I looked up to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She is my idol, no doubt about it. And I'll be damned if I let her work go to waste. Thank you.
Thank you, Trinity. Let's hear it. My body, my choice. My body, my choice. Okay, thank you. Our next honored guest is my Congressman Bill Foster, and my Congressman believes in a woman's right to make her own decisions about her body.
Thank you, Susanna, and thank you, everyone in Will County. You know, it's not just Will County today. You know, I started this morning in the rally in downtown Chicago, Union Park, where there were thousands there. And the only thing I want to comment is that your signs are bashful compared to the signs that I saw in downtown. But you know, this is a very serious issue with me. 3 times in my life, I've accompanied a woman as she's terminated a pregnancy. And this is not something that is a cause for celebration or joy. This is a serious, personal, important decision when a woman makes it. But the idea that this would not be up to the woman and her doctor, but up to a male-dominated state legislature is just not okay with me. So this is a fight that's been going on, you know, for as long as I've been an adult. You know, I'm old enough to know women who had to take airplane flights to New Jersey because that was the only place that you could get legal abortions for years and years and years. And this is not a threat that cannot come back to the U.S. And the discussion, the tactical discussion we've been having at the Supreme Court, how did we get in this situation where the Supreme Court is on the edge of doing something that is against the wishes of 75 or 80% of the American public to terminate Roe? But how did we get there? Because we're supposed to have a democracy here. And you analyze the situation and you see there's a long history of abuse of the rules of the Senate. You see there are foundational flaws in our country's constitution. We have an electoral college that has repeatedly installed presidents who do not represent the majority of the American public. We have a Congress where a voting majority is held by a number of low population, rural, economically unproductive, and socially backward states that have that voting majority in the Senate. And it's a structural problem. And for all of the young people in the crowd, that is the challenge of your generation, to fix those foundational flaws in our democracy. The malapportionment in the Senate held back civil rights for generations. And it is going to continue to cripple social progress in our country until we deal with it. I don't know, you know, our generation has struggled against it and failed, but it's too important. You must win that fight. But until that time, we're going to see that it is the United States House that will be the firewall against that, you know, because the House is at least approximately proportional to the will of the people. And you're going to see in Illinois, there are going to be 5 heavily contested races in the coming election that are where choice is going to be at the top of the ballot. I just want to reiterate that you're not by yourselves here. My next stop here is going to be up in Geneva, and if I can make it to Elgin, because you're being joined by women and men from all over the country standing up and making the voices here. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Congressman Foster. Bands off my body, my I have a, no, we're not going to do that. I have have the esteemed honor of introducing Alexi Genulius. He is a former Illinois Treasurer. And you're going to see his name again. Everybody in the state of Illinois, let's hear it for Alexi Genulius.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alexi Genulius. I was a former state treasurer. I'm running for Secretary of State, but this is not about elected office. It is about elected office, not about this one. Let me just tell you that we are living in dangerous times. It's very scary what is going on out there. We all know it. That's why you're here today. But we cannot go back. And to see this nation going backwards, even though the majority of Americans believe that women should have the right to choose what's best for their bodies, is horrifying. But we will not go back. We will not go back. And the fact that 5 Supreme Court justices think that they can overturn and take away the rights of 150 million women. 5 Supreme Court justices can take away the rights of 150 million women is unacceptable. But we have a lot of work to do. And the fact that all of you are here today tells me something. We just left Union Park in downtown Chicago. We had a number of people out there. We need your energy. We need your enthusiasm. We need your damn fight every single day. And I don't care if you live in Will County, Cook County, Central Illinois. I don't care if you're male, female, black, brown, Latino, white. We need everyone in this fight with us. So the fact that all of you are here today is enormously important. So I am here to fight alongside all of you. And we also need to make sure that we do everything we can to elect pro-choice candidates. Not just pro-choice candidates, but pro-choice candidates who have fight in them. Who will go to the mats every single day. Who will work our tails off to fight for these rights. I've got 2 little girls at home, and I don't want to look back and say when times got hectic, I did nothing. That's why I'm here today. That's why I'm here in the fight with all of you. And I will always be there for you. Thank you. Let's go get it.
Let's hear it for Alexi Genulius. My cousin had a story that after the Alito brief, she shared on Facebook, first time ever sharing this publicly. She is on vacation, and I do have her permission to read this, so I'm going to read this. My cousin Lisa said, when I was 17, I had a miscarriage. At 18, I had my first son who was born when I was 28 weeks pregnant. Sorry. He was only 2 pounds and 10 ounces and barely survived, but he did. I was told that I had a weak placenta and I would have to be on bed rest my whole pregnancy if I ever become pregnant again. A couple of years later, I started a new job, making pretty good money. I had plans on moving to Chicago and starting my adult life. When I became pregnant again, same man, by the way, I decided to have an abortion. That was my right, and I am so happy that I was afforded that. At the time, I felt that having my second child could possibly be born with major health issues, as my first son did, or possibly causing myself major health issues, and me not being able to care for my son was not an option. So a couple of years later, I did get pregnant again. The baby was born at 20 weeks, weighed only 13 ounces, and passed shortly after birth. This was an experience that took years to come to terms with. Though my first son was only 5 at the time, I cannot imagine what I would have been like as a mother if this had happened with the pregnancy that I aborted. A couple of years later, I got my tubes tied, another right I was afforded. I'm okay with all the decisions that I have made for myself. I did what I felt was right for me, and thank God I was given a right to choose. I cannot imagine how different my life would have been and had been if I didn't. I share my story, my journey, simply because someone may need to hear it. Let's hear it for a woman's right to choose. There are many reasons why women choose abortion, including their health, health of the fetus, and none of them are any of our business. None of our business. And they're certainly not the business of a justice sitting in the Supreme Court with his cushy life and his lifetime job.
I, as a man, obviously am never going to have to undergo this procedure. I didn't think that it was really my place to speak on the subject. But I want to remind everybody, all the men in the audience, anybody who might be watching at home, that if you feel that, like I did at one point, that this issue might not impact you directly, I want to remind you that of course it does, because I can almost guarantee that you know somebody who has had to go through an abortion. You might not know that they did, but you know somebody who has gone through it. So, being a little bit uncomfortable, not quite sure that I was qualified to speak on the subject, I did what I would do in any case when I felt a bit unfamiliar, and that is that I went and read up on the subject. That's what any reasonable person would do. And in my course of studying up, I ran into an interesting bit of history here, and I just want to pull this out. Typically, I don't like to have my phone out when I speak, but I just want to make sure I get all these dates correct and have my timeline in order here. In my studies, I came across a very interesting episode of history about the Jane Collective. Some of you here might be familiar with it. Some of you might be hearing about this for the very first time. I was very surprised with this story. It's an amazing, incredible story. So I'll give you a very, very brief kind of recap of what it is. The Jane Collective was a group of very, very badass women in Chicago in the early 70s who recognized a perhaps uncomfortable truth, but the stark reality, which was that even though abortion was illegal in most of the country, it was still happening. And this drove people into the shadows. It made them go to places to quote unquote doctors who might not have been exactly qualified to go through this procedure. And it put a lot of people at risk. It put a lot of women at risk, mainly women of color, women in low income areas. And they recognized this as a reality and decided that they needed to do something about it. So they began to network with a few doctors who were, you could say, sympathetic to the cause and referred women to them. And over time, they realized that they could actually train themselves and learn how to do the procedure themselves. So over the course of a few years, they conducted, I think, just over 10,000 of these procedures. Again, mostly for women of color, mostly for women in low-income areas. And, well, law enforcement did not like that, of course. So, in 1972, the members of the Jane Collective were subject to a search, they were subject to a raid, and they were arrested. And they all faced potentially up to 110 years in prison for what they had done. 110 years. That's more than any of our lifetimes. Fortunately for them, shortly after, 1973, Roe versus Wade happens, and for them, all of the charges were dropped. So, I was surprised when I read about this. I'd never heard about it until just a few weeks ago when I started to read up on the subject. And I just want to commend them for the bravery that they had, knowing that they could face 110 years in prison. But they stood firm by their beliefs. They knew that this was the right thing to do, and they continued to do it. Keeping that in mind, then you start to recognize just how important this issue is. And it starts to put, really things in perspective. And you recognize now that the argument that this isn't necessarily about children or unborn lives, but really about control, it seems to be less of a stretch. It starts to be a little bit more believable. Because, again, we have to contend with the reality, as the members of the Jane Collective did, that whether this is legal or not, it's going to happen. And we have to recognize that for the wives, daughters, and sisters of the wealthy elite, they're going to have access to health care. They are going to do it. They're going to get it. And so this disproportionately impacts, of course, again, women of color, women of low income. It's that now suddenly the argument that this isn't about lives, this isn't about children, but rather about control, starts to make a little more sense. It starts to be a little bit more plausible. And so, again, I just want to remind for all of the men in the audience who might have believed that, hey, this issue doesn't necessarily directly impact me, it absolutely does. You're going to know somebody in their lifetime who is going to have to face this difficult decision and is going to have to go through this procedure. So this isn't just about the unborn lives, which of course is a terrible thing. We all recognize that. Nobody's saying, hey, you know what you should do? You should go out and get an abortion. Here it's great. Doctors have recommended it, everybody has it. Nobody says that. Of course not. That's ridiculous. But the fact is, again, the stark reality, uncomfortable as it may be, is that these are going to happen. And so it's about bringing people out of the shadows, right? Because when it's criminalized, when it's made illegal, you're driving people into underground networks, you're driving them into the shadows, you're putting them at risk. This is about giving women access to real, legitimate healthcare, because this is healthcare. There we go. Hold up that sign right there. There we go. There we go. So this is about bringing people out of the shadows. This is about making sure that they have the care that they need. Going through it, difficult decision as it may be, when a woman is faced with this decision, we want to make sure that they have the care that they need to go through what is already a very difficult time for them. And so we want to make sure that we're caring for them, that we're protecting them, and that they have the opportunity to do this in a safe and controlled environment, bringing them out of the shadows, bringing them out of the underground, and bringing to them what is a right that should be codified into law.
Thank you, Councilman Cesar Guerrero. Thank you for talking about how this does affect the men in our lives. Thank you for having the fortitude and the courage to stand up at such a young age and fight and get elected. Tireless hours, 12-hour days, 7 days a week. Thank you. Bands off. All right. Bands off. All right. Bands off. All right. My body. My choice. My body. My choice. My body. My choice. Bands off. Our bodies. Bands off. Our bodies. Survivors united will never be divided.